So there's a difference between being a user of money and a steward of wealth. And the real difference is, number one, a connection to our own power inside of our bodies. And number two, having a vision for how holding our power and receiving wealth will actually impact our lives, the lives of our loved ones, and also the world.
Welcome to the Brown Girl Rising podcast, where authenticity meets empowerment. I'm Urvashi, your host and your guide on this journey of elevating voices, sharing stories, and navigating the journey of resilience. So let's dive in. Hi, ladies, and welcome to the Brown Girl Rising podcast. This is your host, Ush, and this week I have Heenali Patel with me. She is incredible. I have done one of her programs, and honestly, it changed my life. Heenali is a wealth expansion business coach for women, and she helps women literally heal from any money trauma and rise into their own self. So, Heenali, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Hi, love. Oh, I'm so good. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. Honestly, I think the moment I came across your profile, I was like obsessed. Like, what is this about? Like, what does she mean? What are the big words that she's using? And then I found out she's from Cambridge University. So there we go. That's where the big words came from. Anyway, Heenali, right. So the first question I'm going to ask you today is what I ask all my guests on season 2, because it is a season of self-love. But what does self-love actually mean to you?
Such a good question. I've never been asked this question before. I think for me, self-love really comes down to listening, and you cannot have self-love without a practice of listening to your body and just a real recognition and acknowledgement that your body contains an entire universe within it. And sometimes the things that are going on in your life, or the emotions that are coming up, or the challenges that you're moving through, they're not even actually yours. They are rooted in ancestral wounding, they're rooted in the collective, they're rooted in so many other things that aren't really necessarily in your control. And actually, I think self-love is about having the grace to see that and understand that and listen to the body and to give it the compassion that it needs to be able to move through some of the stuff that we have to face on a daily basis, right? And then also on the other side is a celebration of ourselves too.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. So the celebration of ourselves and listening to your body. So for those people out there who might not be as far along their journey as, say, you are or I am, what does that actually mean, listening to yourself and then celebrating yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think listening to yourself really is just that. And sometimes we can really overcomplicate this and think that like there's some special process for this, or there's some special method for this. But it literally is just like sitting down and being really quiet and maybe even closing your eyes. Or if you're not the kind of person that sits down, like go for a walk and just pay attention to what you are feeling in your body, like at a sensation level, right?
Yeah.
And it seems so banal, it seems so simple, but I know for me, and I know for so many people, and probably you can really relate to this too, right? This is life-changing. And it represents that first step into like actually having a conversation with your body. And opening up the doors to like new universes, frankly.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Like what you've basically just said is sit down, be quiet, listen to your body.
Yeah.
Told you guys how to meditate. That's what she's done.
Just sit down and shut up.
And yeah, it's really hard for us to like turn our brains off.
Yeah.
So if someone goes, yeah, but sitting down and just listening to your body, I can't, I've got like my to-do list in my brain, I've got all this stuff going on. How do you tune in? So one of the things I do is obviously breath, right? Tune in via breath. But have you got any other tools or practices or tips that you can give on tuning in to the body?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think there are so many tools that we can use. Like personally, I use yoga in the mornings to do this. I am a practiced meditator at this point, but of course there was a time when I also struggled with this. And it was just really hard, and I just had to accept that, right? But I think there's also another layer to this, which is an awareness of the systemic oppressions and ways in which we are led to disassociate and disconnect from the body and actually be in this state of hustle and busyness. And that's very much a part of our culture. It is what is celebrated in society. For a lot of us, it's how our ancestors had to survive and make money, right? And so this has been programmed into us. And like, so when you sit down and you're like, oh my God, this is actually really hard, to give yourself that level of compassion and awareness and understanding that this is a systemic problem as well. This isn't a problem and fault of the individual. It is a collective like issue, right? And so when we're doing this, we're plugging into that, and it is an act of revolution, right?
I'm just going to say
radical.
something. Yeah, I'm just going to stop you there a second, Heenali. When you're talking about this, my chest just started getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, I can feel it. I can feel it. And that is us living in that 3D institutionalization world, really. The system,
100%. Yeah. And, I think that is the aspect of the healing conversation that's often missing, especially for women of color. And it's, I work specifically with women of color, and it is these elements that we bring in of like, I wonder why it's so difficult for you to sit down and just like close your eyes and not say anything and just be with the body. I wonder why it's so difficult for you to be outside and just soak in the sun without your brain being like, that's enough. You can't do this. You're too busy, blah, 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 right?
It is not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it is not a problem of the individual. This is a collective issue that we are slowly, compassionately, with grace, unweaving from our system, right?
It's just mad, isn't it? And I like the way that you literally get your clients to question everything. There's a lot that I want to talk about. You said something earlier about the universe in our body, and the reason I bring this up is because on a session I had with you, you blew me away when you said that we had the ocean in our body. And honestly, that was like, I couldn't even understand that until you explained it. So can you explain this? I know it's obviously part of your program. Give us a quick overview of what you mean by the ocean is in our body. Yes. Your ocean.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's so many layers to this, right? Like there's the poetry of this, and there's also like the prose of this, but I'll kind of explain like why actually fundamentally at a literal level, we have the ocean in our bodies, right? So I work with a part of our body called the nervous system, and this is basically a tapestry of nerves that runs throughout our body. And we have a central nervous system that runs from our brain all the way down our spine. And most medical like illustrations of the nervous system just show it to be like our skeleton, right? With like these nerves kind of running right down the middle of it. And even our brain is seen as like this big pink splodge right in the middle of our skulls, right?
Biology lesson 101.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. But the truth is when you actually do a bit of research around this and look into this, we actually have like our nervous system is suspended in water. It's suspended in this kind of membrane of water, and even running down our nervous system, our central nervous system, is this kind of stream of water. Now that water is chemically the same as ocean water, right? And so, at a very literal level, we do have the ocean inside of our bodies, right? And it's not just that, like think about a woman that's pregnant, right? The womb holding the baby, well, that water surrounding the baby is ocean water, right? And so we are born of ocean water, and we have ocean water surrounding this incredibly sacred part of our body, our brain connecting to our heart, connecting to our nervous system, which then acts as a bridge to our relationship with the rest of the world, right? And our nervous system is incredibly pivotal in our relationship with money as well, and our capacity to expand into more wealth. So yeah, and at like a poetic level, the sea is our great ancestor, right? We all came from the sea. We evolved from like sea creatures and crustaceans or whatever. We came from the sea. And so our bodies still hold that memory, right? They hold the memory of our great ancestor. And that is something that we get to tap into in our own healing journeys and our journeys to wealth.
Wow. And we are going to talk about wealth, but when the first time I heard you speak about this, obviously I've just gone, wow, again, I'm blown away. The first time I heard you speak about this, I was like, that makes sense why being at the ocean, being on a beach, overlooking vast, vast amounts of water, or by a lake, or anything like that, makes me feel like I'm home.
Yes, yes. I have full-on body chills listening to you say that.
It really does. And it's one of my favorite places to be. Like, if I need to just come back home to myself, the ocean is where I go, or a river, or something like this, moving water. And for some of you, that might sound really woo-woo, and I might go a little bit woo-woo now, but like Atlantis, that whole, when you're talking, all I think of is Atlantis and the waters and how we were, a lot of us came from Atlantis. And, I'm not going to go into that too much right now, but that's the vision that I had of us just like on this happy planet, sunken, the sunken Greek city or whatever it was, but like that happy planet of people just being a bit of everything and just meshing with the ocean and like the outside. Oh my God, it just makes me go a little bit like,
oh my goodness. I so feel you on that. Like I've always felt this magnetism to the sea, right? And I think so many of us do, because it's such a human experience to like look out on the ocean and to look out at the horizon. And that experience gets to be mirrored inside of our bodies as well. Like when we go inwards and we start to listen to our bodies, we get this experience of like looking out towards the horizon.
Yeah.
And this is such a human, wondrous, celebratory thing to be able to give ourselves as an experience.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So let's talk about what you do, changing tangent a little bit. So you work with women of color on their money stories and their businesses and things like that. So can you just explain a little bit more about what it is you actually do?
Yeah, sure. So there are like two kind of branches to what I do, the way I see it. So one side is really about business evolution. So I work with women of color, coaches and healers specifically, and I really support them to evolve their brands and their businesses, to really weave in the poetry of their ancestry and their lineage into their work, right? And to use nature-aligned strategies and business energetics to really just evolve their business, right? And to serve more clients and to have a product suite that really reflects their story.
Yeah.
So that's one side of it. And then the other side is all centered around wealth expansion. So this is supporting our bodies to actually feel safe with money and to, from that place, expand our capacity to receive, hold, and circulate wealth, and to do so from a place of being in like a decolonized, conscious relationship with money.
So my question to you is then this: why, as Asian women, do we have such a difficult relationship with money?
Oh my God. I could talk about that for hours. Like, do you want to go? Do you want to?
Yeah, I want to go there. I want to go there in the next 30 minutes. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I guess the way that I would answer this is there are two kind of orientations that we need to think about when it comes to like brown women and money, right? The first is the context of our lineage and our histories. A lot of us in our lineages have moved through experiences of colonization, of exploitation, right? Of extraction from the land by Western so-called civilizations, right? That have come to our ancestral lands and essentially stolen from them, right? And that was all done in the name of the accumulation of money, right?
Yeah.
And so even if we may not be consciously aware of that, our bodies know, they remember that, right? We have an ocean living in our bodies, and that ocean holds memories. And so our nervous systems still hold those memories of this association between money, betrayal, loss of community, loss of connection to the body, right? Being stolen from, right? Being exploited. All of these things still live in our bodies, right? So there's that aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then there's the aspect of looking at how money is spoken about within our family contexts, right?
Yeah.
What we hear being spoken about, like how is money talked about by your parents, by your grandparents? How is money spoken about in the society that you move through, right? And I think for a lot of, especially brown women, especially women of the diaspora, there's this real pressure for us to be quote unquote successful and to, pursue money and to kind of, that's seen as the kind of priority, and it's almost obsessed about in this way that is actually very much feels very jarring to our nervous system as well, right? And so on one end, we have this feeling of like money is incredibly unsafe and it has completely destroyed my ancestry and my connection to community. And then on the other hand, we have this feeling of like, I have to chase money. I have to work really, really hard in order to make money because this is the value system of my family now, right? So like, yeah, we can definitely unpack that more if you
Yeah,
like.
I do want to. Like, but so for example, now bear with me because I do go off on tangents on these podcasts.
Yeah, no
So,
worries.
I'm thinking like I'm going back to my mum and my dad's mum. I didn't know my mum's mum. And these were women who didn't really have money,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, sure, my mum worked a little bit. My grandma definitely did not. And they were reliant on men. Now, is there trauma there for us more independent women who have now been told, okay, well, you've gone through the education system, now go out and make money, and it just feels like pressure to make money
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah.
I also feel like there's trauma. Like,
Yes.
can we even make this money that we
Yes. Yes. You've touched on something that's so true and so resonant, I think, for a lot of brown women. A lot of the women that I work with have this story come up of, I'm not capable with money.
Oh yeah.
I do not know how to handle money.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in one way, we're making money, we're bringing it in because this is what we've been taught to do. Right. And on the other hand, we don't feel safe enough to actually hold it. And so what ends up happening is it slips right through our fingers. We end up giving it away. We don't know how to be in the presence of money and actually feel safe holding it. And that essentially is a question about our trust in our own power and capacity to hold power, right? Because essentially money is power in the world that we live in the systems that we live in. Money does represent power, right? And so for a lot of brown women, growing up, you've seen the women around you, or, ancestrally, these women were not entrusted with power. They absorbed this story that they were not capable of being in power. And
Yeah.
we've inherited that. And now we are being invited to break those stories, right? To reweave them and find new stories.
It's so interesting because we're going to go into my example now, like can't hold money. No, I'm going to take that back. I couldn't hold money. Now, two reasons I believe is basically some of the work that I've done and some stuff that came out from this is like, once my Massey said to me, she looked at my palm. I don't know, she's some kind of a reader, whatever. She looks at my palm and she goes, Urvashi, you're going to have a lot of money in your life, but you're never going to hold any of it. And secondly, as a teenager, when I started getting my first pay packets, it was like, how much are you earning? Where's that money going? Give me half of your pay packet so that I can save it for your education. And it was these kind of things that came up in my family, in my household.
Yeah.
And it always felt like, you don't trust me with money.
Yeah.
And then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I ended up in debt, right? And then when I paid off all my debt-free for like 6 months, guess what happened? I went straight back into it because I couldn't hold money. And it was scary for me to have money.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
That is totally a thing. Yeah. And I can really relate to that as well, because what you're really speaking about there, and thank you for sharing so much of your own story around money, because I think, a lot of this stuff can be very vulnerable and raw for us. We don't get the opportunity to talk about our relationship with money very much. It's an avoidance pattern, right? And our nervous systems, they become used to a certain kind of situation, right? Even if that situation is not ideal for us or it's not actually serving us. So at some point, your nervous system calibrated to this idea of like being in debt, of not holding the money. And so even when you became debt-free, what happens is the world reshapes itself to feel safe to your nervous system again, right? So the debt comes back again because that is what your nervous system felt safe with.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't a kind of objective safe, it's a subjective safe. It's what's familiar to you, right? But that can be changed, that can be unwoven and rewoven into something new, right? But essentially what this is an avoidance pattern with money. And when we really come down to it, it's an avoidance of what it feels like to be in the presence of your own power.
Yeah.
Right? That is essentially what it comes down to. What does it feel like in my body to actually hold my power? Right?
That's interesting.
At a sensation level, what does it feel like to hold my power? And that, if that registers as incredibly uncomfortable in the body as it does for many brown women, we want to throw it away. We want to just throw it out. And that's what ends up happening with money as a manifestation of that internal relationship with our own power.
So I would say I wouldn't call myself a master manifester, but I'm definitely very good at manifesting the things I wanted. And at that point where I'm talking about where I fell into, where I came out of debt, I was powerful. But then when I had this money, because I've been so used to putting holidays on credit card and, all this kind of stuff. And it was like, oh, I can buy a new car now. And, it just kind of was just like, I didn't understand what having like a black bank balance was. And like, you're right. Maybe I did feel safer knowing that every month when I get money, I know that X% is going to go over there, X% is going to go over there, and then I'm going to be working on credit,
Yes, I so hear you. And, I think also a part of that is like there are 4 seasons to kind of our relationship with money, right? There's attracting money, which it sounds like you're very good at, right?
Sometimes.
There's receiving money, which is the actual act of kind of bringing it in and receiving it into our lives, right? Receiving it into our bank accounts. Again, sounds like you're probably quite skilled at that too, right?
I love receiving money.
There's the season of holding money, right? Which is where the challenges may come in. And then there's the season of circulating money, right? And I think often holding and circulating have a very close relationship because how we hold also reflects how we circulate. How we circulate also reflects how we hold, right? And for so many of us, actually, we don't necessarily have like a long-term vision of what we want our money to be doing for us. And when we don't have that long-term vision and we don't have the structures in place to support us with that vision, right? We end up falling back on old patternings, right? We end up falling back on those old stories living in our nervous system and enacting circulation and holding patterns through that instead, right? So it sounds like you reached like a kind of tipping point, like an evolution point, an expansion in your nervous system when you became debt-free. And what really wanted to happen at that point was for it to land and to be integrated into the body, right? And to really be rewoven so that you could create the systems and structures that would support you in a new holding and circulating pattern, right?
And that's what I didn't do.
Yeah, and that's okay because these things come and go. They come and go. And the beauty of these journeys is that there's no like it's never too late. Like things come and they go, and they come in cycles. So
And it's a lesson, isn't it? So
yeah,
I feel like same with health, like all these yo-yo dieters out there. It's like, okay, I actually got to a place with my health where I was really, really happy, which is 15 kilos ago. And then I got ill and then I put on the 15 kilos. But I remember when I was 15 kilos lighter, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate
yes,
where I was. And now 15 kilos heavier, I'm like, damn, if I could be there again, I would appreciate her and the effort that went into that so much. Instead, I was
yes.
fighting to lose more weight, fighting to get smaller, right? And I think it's the same with the money. Like when I was there, I didn't appreciate it, right?
Yes, I so hear you. And I really love your point about, that appreciation and celebration of past versions of ourselves
Mm.
that actually were incredibly courageous and brave and undertook that journey and expanded our nervous system in ways that felt unfamiliar, right? And did that work for us so that we could have a taste of what that was, so that we
Yeah.
could come back to it.
Yeah. Now, I've heard you say this term a couple of times, a money steward. Like stewarding money,
Yes.
and I'm just like, it took me a long time. And this maybe is just the way I am. And I was like, what does she mean by stewarding money? Like, and, I guess when you were talking about it, it's like putting money in the places and circulating the money to the right places out of this system, out of the institution. And can you kind of go into what you mean a little bit more about it? Because I don't think I'm explaining it very well.
No, totally. Yeah, right. Like, so this really beautifully links to what we've just been talking about. So there's a difference between being a user of money and a steward of wealth. And the real difference is, number one, a connection to our own power inside of our bodies. And number two, having a vision for how holding our power and receiving wealth will actually impact our lives, the lives of our loved ones, and also the world. Right. And this is what being a steward really means. It means taking on a sacred responsibility of seeing that me gaining wealth also gets to be a story of others gaining wealth too. Right.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we are really taught about when it comes to money. And even in society, this isn't necessarily something that's really celebrated or, handed to us as kind of something to really consider. But what if we were to actually orient to our relationship with money in a way of understanding that my receiving of money, my holding of wealth, gets to be a story about the receivership of everyone, right? And actually, what does it mean to hold this wealth and to recirculate it out in the world in a way that lines up with my values, with my value system, with my vision for humanity and for the world? What does that mean? What even is my vision for humanity? What does liberation mean to me, right? These are all the questions that are tied up with that word, stewardship. And, something else I just want to say around this is like, a lot of coaches really focus on like receptivity and like, oh, you get to receive, just be in your soft feminine era and like just receive everything. And I love that. Like, honestly, I do. I love that. Like, I think it's great that we get to receive and we live in that paradigm. Right. But there is also a conversation to be had around sacred responsibility. Okay, now you have this money. What are you going to do with it? Right. How are you building a conscious plan for what you are doing with that money so that it doesn't just whittle away, right? How is it lining up with you? How is it lining up with your values, with your vision, with your mission, right? Those are all questions surrounding stewardship of money.
And these are questions that I'm just going to put out there, but nobody would really ask.
Yeah,
right. I think we all get to that point of attracting it, receiving it, and then we're like, yes, let's just spend it.
Yes,
we don't think consciously about where it's going and how it's gonna change the planet, change people's lives, our lives, and one of the things that's really, I think, helped me put with where I'm putting my money and the products that I'm buying and the things that I'm investing in for myself is things like what has been going on in Gaza, right?
Yes.
And I know you spoke about this a lot on your Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us why, like, we should be bothered about that? Like, why we should be bothered about actually knowing who our money's going to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at a very fundamental level, like the way that we spend money, the way that we circulate money has a consequence, right? It has an effect. It has an impact. And for so long, we've kind of been blinded to it. We've been numbed out from that. You know, we just go and buy something and then we forget about it. And it's almost like that money just disappears, but it doesn't disappear. It goes to somebody else. It moves into somebody else's hands. Well, whose hands are they? Whose hands are you putting your money into? What are their values? What is their vision for the world? Because is their vision for the world a ravaged planet? Right?
Yeah.
Is their vision for the world genocide? Is their vision for the world murdered children?
Yeah.
That is where you're putting your money, right? So at a very fundamental level, that is, that's why it's important, because we are all complicit. We are all connected to this, right? We are all a part of this. And, there are plenty of people out there just ignoring that and turning a blind eye to it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we are still all connected to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't know that you're connected, you are connected. And even if you can't be bothered to know that you're connected, I'm sorry, but you are connected.
You still are connected, right? Yeah. It's like we are still a part of nature, whether we, acknowledge it or not, right? Like it doesn't change the fact. Like if you just don't acknowledge gravity, it doesn't mean it stops working. Like, it's there, it's a fact, right?
Exactly.
But the other thing that I really wanted to say around this, Ush, was like, a lot of the time we are led to believe that money has power over us. And so much of the work that I do around the wealth expansion side of things is helping women of color to understand that we have power over money. And that's actually such a huge reorientation. Yeah. Because then what happens is when the money comes in, we start to ask these questions, right? We're like, well, I have this money now. How do I desire to express my power through it? How do I desire to give money meaning, right? That money doesn't come to us with meaning already inside of it. No. Money doesn't have meaning except the meaning that we give it, right? And that's a really powerful reorientation to keep reminding yourself of every time. And, I do this. So this is a little practical thing. Every time I circulate money, I say thank you. Every time I receive it, I imagine more of my power coming back to me.
Oh, wow.
Every time, no matter what the transaction, even if I'm just buying a tomato from the supermarket, and this is the kind of, the way we can begin to reimagine our relationship with money.
Yeah. Essentially, what you're saying is money is just energy.
Yes, and
no.
No.
I found that one coming. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, money is a tool. Money is a tool.
Yes.
And we get to weave stories to it, right? We get to wield it in whichever way we desire.
So changing angle again, because there's something else I feel like we need to kind of unpack a little bit. And this came as a shock to me when I guess we spoke about it, is that whole, depending on which sister you are in the evolution of when you were born, you spend, see, attract, and be with money very differently.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm an older sister and we've had like WhatsApp messages about this and you're not. And like I am very, as you can tell, boom, got money, let me do something with it, whether it's a trip or it's another set of cards or it's, know, equipment, whatever I need. And you were like, that's not everyone though. And it depends on like your generation. Yeah. Can you like dig into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I have an older sister who is exactly the same kind of money patterns as you do. You know, she will just spend her money like it will just be gone basically. And you know, she's incredibly generous with her money, right? Like
Hmm,
you know, part of this is that
definitely.
she's spending so much money on her family, on the family, right? And this is something that has always been true for her, like just like yeah, putting money into the family. And I think that particular pattern is very common for eldest daughters. There is a specific archetype. So there are different types of like money wounds that we can carry. And there are five that are particularly common for like women of color. And one of those archetypes is what I call the dutiful daughter. And
Yeah.
it's basically this archetype of taking on the responsibility for the family, right? And as the eldest child, that energy often will fall upon the eldest, right? There's
Yeah.
this sense of I need to hold up the family, I need to take on responsibility. It may not even be the case that anyone's explicitly said that to you, right? It's
Mm.
just something that's been absorbed, right, as a story.
Well, it has.
Mm.
So just to put it out there, like when I was at university, my dad actually asked me for money and I gave him my student loan because he needed it,
Wow.
right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
will
Yeah.
send my parents on like little trips and book them a hotel and pay for it and never ask for the
Wow.
money back. Why am I going to do that? You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I think especially for like brown women, there is this narrative um, that we absorb from our families that say like, look how much we sacrificed for you. You know, look how much we
Mm,
sacrificed for you to get an education, for you to live in the West, particularly, right? Look how much we did for you to have a good life.
mm,
And our bodies implicitly feel this sense of like, I need to pay this back, like this sacrifice, I need to somehow pay it back, right? Um, and I often think like the word responsibility becomes very heavy. It becomes almost like a burden
mm,
when we're really active in that dutiful daughter archetype, right?
mm.
And actually, what we really need to do is to come into a different relationship with the word responsibility.
Okay.
Well, how is it that I want to be responsible with my money? How does that reflect my actual desired relationship with my family? Where do I need to put up some boundaries, right? Where do I need to say no? Where do I need to risk disappointing people, right?
Mm,
And understanding that that is all a part of my identity as a responsible steward of money, right?
mm. So going back to the kind of the oldest sister or the eldest daughter, like what's the difference? So obviously you're saying the eldest daughter is, and some of you out there listening might be like, yes, that is me. But how would a middle child or the youngest, have you even figured that out, how they would be with money? Is it different
Mm.
to the eldest?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the most prominent pattern tends to be with the oldest child.
Okay,
Because of that narrative around responsibility
fine.
and sacrifice that you kind of imbibe in your bodies for some reason as the eldest.
Mm,
Um,
lucky us.
yeah, right. Whereas, you know, I think children after that, it just depends, right? It depends on our different circumstances, on different situations, on
Mm,
different ancestral stories that are coming into our bodies. Like this stuff is so incredibly complex,
yeah.
and there isn't really any way to say like, oh, you know, this is the dominant pattern for everyone. You know, it tends to be a lot more complex than that.
So I'm going to ask you, so if there's somebody out there right now who's maybe struggling with holding money or attracting money, is there like
Mm.
one or two tips you could give them to kind of
Yeah.
calm their nervous system down or anything that you can help any of our brown
Yeah.
girls out there?
Yeah, of course. So should we start with attracting money? That seems
Yeah,
to
go
be
for it. Yeah.
yeah. So attracting money is very much linked to the energy of being seen, right? And I find to be the case like when people are really struggling with attracting money, so attracting people being interested in their work, for example, attracting new job opportunities, whatever it is, it's often because they struggle or they have a fear around being seen for their authentic selves, right? And
Mm,
so when we when we think about it in that way, some ways that you can really support yourself to attract wealth is to allow yourself to be seen a little bit more, right? Whatever that means for you. For some people, that means thinking about, and it sounds really banal, it sounds really trite, but like, how do you dress? Do the clothes you wear help you feel seen for who you authentically are?
Showing up, isn't it, really? Showing up for
Showing
yourself.
up, right? Do you let yourself show up even when you're quote unquote less than perfect? You know, I used to have this pattern like where if I wasn't even like if I was feeling like even a little bit off or just like somehow not okay, I would like cancel all my meetings that day, right? I'd be like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want anyone to see me in this state. I'm not perfect, right? And so actually, can we give ourselves the grace to be seen even when we're not, quote unquote, perfect, right?
Yeah.
Can we allow our vulnerabilities to be seen a little bit more where it's safe for us to do so, right? Like these are all the sorts of things that we can begin to consider when it comes to attracting money. Because essentially, money is all about relationships, right? So how you attract money is totally related to how you relate to people, right? And so being seen is very much an important part of like the relational field, right? I see you like
That makes sense. Because
oh goodness.
I have recently attracted someone into my life, and I've also started to attract new clients into my life.
Well, yeah, that's not coincidence, is it? It's a relational patterning, right?
Yeah. And I totally manifested this person. I know that.
Yeah. Oh,
Took a year, and I've forgotten about it. But yeah, no, absolutely. And it's gonna sound weird, but like he is, I know this is not about money now, but as a young girl growing up, I used to always want this like romance and this Bollywood style love. And I forgot about it. And this person's come into my life and he's got that part to him. And it's so exciting for me because I'm like, oh, because then I've been in relationships where it was just like, you know, just the mundane, like, whatever. This guy is going out of his way to make me feel like I am an A-lister in his life.
Wow, I love that.
Which has made me feel like an A-lister in my life. Not that I needed that, because I've already started feeling like that. Already started, like, as I said, you know, before we used to press record, you know, I've got a couple of retreats that I've sold out and stuff like that. But it's really like solidified who I am a little bit. And there are so many people out there who find everything that, you know, the stuff that he does quite cheesy. Yeah, I love it. I like bring on that Kardashian lifestyle.
I love that for you. That's so awesome.
But yeah, you're right. It's relational, right? As well. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I often find this with my clients when they start to expand their capacity for wealth through the nervous system work. They attract new relationships, they get engaged, they get married even, you know, and that's happened many times with my clients to a point where, you know, it's just not coincidence anymore, right? It's very much a part of this. And then talking about holding money. So one really amazing tip, which I did at the beginning of my journey, was like, literally get out your wallet, okay? Take out a £10 note or whatever your currency is, put it on the desk, let it be there.
Can I show you something?
There next to you.
I have a £10 note and a pyrite which sits on top of it on my desk. How freaking freaky is that?
Yeah. And like, so tell me, what has the experience been like for you to like, you know, when you first did it and you put the money there and it was like there, you know?
Oh, I wanted to spend it. I was like, can I not just go buy takeaway with that or something? Like, you know, why am I just leaving a lot? That's a lot of, I'm sorry, but £10 is a lot of money. Yeah. Right? It might not be as valuable as it was 10 years ago, but it's still £10. And okay, it's a bit crumpled. But then I was like, I'm just going to put my pyrite on it because obviously fool's gold, attract more of that to me. And it sits on my desk by my laptop. As you saw, I picked it up from there.
Yeah. And how do you feel now about money? Like having been in the presence of it for a while, where it's just sitting there.
It's just there. I like it. And it's like, I look at it and I don't really acknowledge it, if I'm honest with you. And maybe that's where I'm going wrong. I don't know. Like I go, okay, cool. That's
Yeah,
pretty.
I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do this, but I think the one thing you can just do is to check in with your body and be like, how does my body feel at being around here? So,
Yeah.
like, when I first took out a £10 note and put it on my desk,
Yeah.
my heart was thumping.
Oh.
Oh my goodness, it was racing. I was like, wow, my body is telling me that it really does not feel safe in the presence of money, right? And I actually had to sit down with it and just like almost treating it like a person that was there. And I was like really learning to like kind of calm my body and be with it and really teach my body that it was okay for
Mm.
me to be in proximity with money, right? And that has really, really helped me on my own personal journey around holding money.
That's an incredible. Thank you for those tips. Those are incredible. Look, I could talk to you about money, about wealth for hours,
Yeah,
as we said at the beginning,
yeah.
but we're not going to. What we might do is a part two, guys. Let's see.
Oh, yes. I love
But
that.
look, darling, if anybody wants to reach out to you, maybe do Flourish is what I did. Flourish, which was
Yes.
incredible. And then look at maybe if they're a business owner, look at BIPOC and Bountiful.
Yeah.
How do they reach out to learn more about you and what you
Yeah.
do and maybe work with you?
Yeah, sure. So the best place to find me is Instagram. So I am at sacred.weaver. And yeah, you can find out about all of my work there. You can DM me, you can ask me any questions, anything you like. For any of you like who have really felt some resonance with our conversation around money, I do really recommend Flourish as a brilliant place to start.
Mm.
It's a money healing care package designed for women of color.
Mm.
And it's basically a kind of 3 week long package that will walk you through step by step how to begin your money healing journey, right? Over 3 weeks, you'll be given all the resources and guidance that you need on that journey. And it's been so incredible to hear like feed women of color around their experiences with it. How they've managed to deepen their relationship with money, how they're starting to weave ancestral expression into their work, how they're starting to expand their capacity to hold more money. So that's a brilliant, brilliant place to start. You can find the link for that in my bio on Instagram.
Amazing. And I can vouch for Flourish, especially this one session that we did live and we did a bit of somatic release. And I was like, what's this going to do for me? Like, like this is going to do nothing. And, you said turn the cameras off. And
Yeah.
I don't know what happened toward the end of that, but I said, I literally was in tears as we were doing it. And I was like, wow, that was really powerful for me. And I do think that things started shifting, like with the kind of work and also the new person in my life and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely think,
Beautiful.
I'm definitely going to go through Flourish again. So guys, if you are interested in this sacred money package, healing package, I would definitely reach out to sacred.weaver. That's Heenali Patel. She is incredible. So thank you,
Thank
my
you,
love, for
love.
being on the podcast. I've loved having you.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And guys, I will be with you next week with another guest, I'm sure.